Welcome back. I'm incredibly excited to be your guide for today's explainer. We're stepping into a real expert implementer training session focused on one of the absolutely most powerful tools in the CMMI v3.0 model, and that's causal analysis and resolution. We're going to completely transform the way you look at both problems and successes in your organization. So get ready to put on your detective hat. You know, have you ever wondered why the exact same software bugs just keep crashing your system week after week? Or why, despite your team practically breaking their backs, your product deliveries are chronically late? It feels like you're stuck in a loop, right? Well, today we're going to learn how to break that loop for good. We're going to learn how to solve these organizational mysteries permanently, rather than just treating the symptoms over and over. So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the root cause detective mindset. Second, the basics of causal analysis. Third, standardizing the investigation. Fourth, stepping into high maturity with statistics. And finally, some real-world scenarios. All right, section 1, the root cause detective. Let's get our core mindset established. Okay, so here's our foundational definition. Causal analysis and resolution, or CAR for short, is all about identifying the fundamental causes of selected outcomes. And I want you to notice something crucial there. It says outcomes, not just problems. We want to prevent negative outcomes from recurring, absolutely. But we also want to replicate the positive ones. If a project finishes a whole month early, we want to know exactly why so we can do it again. Within CMMI v3.0, CAR sits perfectly in the enabling category, and specifically within the supporting implementation capability area. It basically acts as your organization's internal detective agency. I love this quote because it hits the nail on the head. It's not just firefighting, it's finding out why the fire started in the first place. Think about it. When you only fight fires, you are trapped in a vicious cycle of rework. You fix a bug, it comes back, you fix it again. Your productivity just plummets. But by attacking the root cause, you eliminate that rework completely. You free up your team's time and directly improve quality and productivity across the board. Moving right along to section 2, the basics of causal analysis. Let's see how this builds from the ground up at levels 1 and 2. Notice the major contrast here. At level 1, you have the initial approach. You basically identify and fix immediate causes of issues exactly as they happen. It's highly reactive. But at level 2, with the managed approach, a huge shift happens. You realize you simply cannot investigate every single issue. There just isn't enough time in the day. So you start selecting specific, high-impact outcomes for deeper analysis. You manage your focus. To put that into perspective, at level 1, your activities are quite simple and immediate. A developer notices a bug, does a quick investigation, realizes an outdated software library is the culprit, and updates it. Boom, fixed. At this level, you investigate the outcome, record the change you made, and implement the quick fix. It's necessary for sure, but it's very localized. But at level 2, you start acting like a much savvier detective. You don't just chase every random lead. You define the scope of your analysis. You might pull up Pareto charts or histograms to figure out which issues are popping up most frequently or costing the most money, and you deliberately pick the outcomes with the greatest business impact. Plus, you don't do this alone in a room. You involve the stakeholders closest to the work, because let's be honest, the people on the ground usually understand the problem best. Then you implement fixes designed to save serious time and money moving forward. All right, section 3, standardizing the investigation. Time to look at the level 3 approach. At level 3, root cause analysis is no longer done on the fly or based on someone's gut feeling. You follow formal, standardized steps. Step 1, you find the root cause using an organizational process. Step 2, you formally propose actions to permanently remove that cause. Step 3, you prioritize and implement the best action proposals. And step 4, which is absolutely crucial, you record all your data and rationale so the entire organization can actually learn from your findings. So to execute that very first step of finding the root cause, you need standard interrogation techniques. 2 of the absolute best are the 5 whys method, which is exactly what it sounds like, asking why repeatedly, usually about 5 times, to drill down past the symptoms right to the fundamental reason. Alternatively, you've got the fishbone diagram, also known as the Ishikawa diagram, which is fantastic for visually mapping out various categories of potential causes and their effects. Let's walk through a quick, practical example of the 5 whys in action because it's just so powerful. Step 1, the software crashed. Why? Step 2, well, the system memory was full. Why? Step 3, there was a memory leak in the code. Why? Step 4, no code review was done before release. Why? Step 5, the developer was rushed by an unrealistic deadline. Just look at that progression. We went from a simple software crash all the way down to discovering the true culprit, a rushed deadline that caused skipped quality reviews. If we just restarted the server at step 1, it's literally just going to crash again later. By reaching step 5, we can actually fix the underlying process. And that brings us to the ultimate goal of level 3. Once you've found that root cause and proving your proposed fix actually works, you do not keep it a secret. You officially submit an improvement proposal. If your team automated a testing process that wiped out memory leaks, CAR dictates you share that process. This reduces disruptions everywhere, effectively turning your successful local fix into a citywide policy for the whole company. Section 4, High Maturity, using statistics at levels 4 and 5. This is where we graduate to the forensics phase. Look at how this table marks the shift into high maturity. In levels 1 through 3, your approach is largely qualitative. You're using basic charts, interviews, and, well, educated guessing. But in levels 4 and 5, your approach becomes strictly quantitative. You're no longer relying on guesses at all. You are using statistical baselines and hard numbers to diagnose process stability. So what does this actually look like? Well, at level 4, you use advanced statistical models to pinpoint your root causes. And more importantly, after you implement an action, you don't just sit back and say, yeah, it feels like things are better. You mathematically verify that your fix caused a statistically significant improvement. Then, at level 5, the optimizing level, you take that statistically proven fix and proactively evaluate it for broader scaling. You actively hunt for similar processes across the entire company where applying this exact change will maximize savings and minimize risk on a massive scale. Okay, final section. Section 5, CAR in real-world scenarios. Let's ground all this theory. CAR is just incredibly adaptable. Whether you're operating in an agile Scrum environment or managing external vendors, it fits right in. In Agile, teams can use CAR during their sprint retrospectives. If a sprint backlog fails, they don't just shrug it off. They analyze why. Was it poorly defined user stories? Chronic distractions from Slack messages? Maybe underestimating complexity? And in supplier management, you might perform a joint causal analysis with a vendor to fix recurring defects in their deliverables. Maybe they need to fix a manufacturing process, or maybe your internal team just needs to write clearer specifications. This specific product delivery scenario beautifully summarizes our whole explainer today. Imagine products are constantly shipping late. A level 1 response is just forcing overtime to meet the date, a total band-aid. A level 2 response is investigating and finding out the real problem is that requirements are arriving late to the developers. But a level 3 CAR response goes all the way. Using the 5 whys, you discover that the client requirement sign-off process is just way too complex and bureaucratic. So the permanent action is to completely revise and streamline that sign-off process across the company. Boom! The root cause is removed. I want to conclude this explainer with a provocative question for you to take back to your teams. Are you just putting out daily fires, or are you actively investigating why they started so you can fireproof your tomorrow? Adopting the root cause detective mindset is how you truly master CMMI's causal analysis and resolution practice area. So please, don't settle for treating symptoms. Dig deep, find the truth, and build a stronger, more resilient organization. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and keep asking why.